The mic clicked once. That tiny pop of static you only hear in headphones. It's a sound I used to love, like a heartbeat starting up before a story. But that morning, in my apartment on the east side of town, it felt like proof that something private had been stolen. The playback of my own voice came through the monitors, unfinished sentences and rough breaths, and underneath them, someone else's laughter layered in, the one voice I never wanted to hear again. It started 2 months earlier. I was 32, working nights as a sound editor for a small production company that specialized in political podcasts. On the side, I'd been recording my own show, quiet, personal, about memory and guilt. It wasn't meant for an audience yet. It was something I did after midnight, when the city outside my window hummed low and distant, when the radiator clicked like it had something to confess. I called it 100 Quiet Things. Each episode was me talking to no one. About my brother, who stopped calling. About the first apartment I ever lived in. About the strange noise I used to hear in my childhood house at 2 in the morning. It was messy, raw, full of pauses. I told myself I'd release it one day, when I was ready to be seen. Eli was the only person I trusted with it. We'd been friends since college, audio majors who bonded over bad coffee and broken mixers. He had that kind of confidence that filled a room, sharp, fast-talking, the type who made people laugh even when he didn't mean to. After graduation, he'd blown up online, guest hosting viral commentary shows, teaching courses on authentic storytelling. I stayed behind the scenes. When he offered to help polish my drafts, I said yes too fast. It felt like validation, like someone successful finally saw me. I uploaded the files to our shared drive one Friday night, labeled Draft EPU3.wave. Then I went to bed with that rare kind of peace that only comes from thinking you're finally being taken seriously. 2 days later, the file wasn't mine anymore. It showed up on a popular creative podcast forum under a different name. The Moment That Made Me Stay. The voice was mine. The story was mine. But the intro music, the host name, the credits, all Eli. I stared at the post for almost an hour before it hit me that I wasn't dreaming. My rough audio, complete with my nervous stammers and the part where I accidentally hit the desk, was being praised as brutal honesty from a seasoned voice. Comments piled up. This is what real emotion sounds like. Eli's storytelling is next level. I felt sick. That night I called him. He didn't answer. He texted back 20 minutes later. Hey man, chill. Just a test upload. Wanted to see how it lands. We'll talk credits later. I typed and deleted a dozen replies before settling on, that wasn't a test. You know it wasn't. No response. For the rest of the week, I watched the post climb the algorithm like a thief scaling a ladder. Eli appeared on a live stream talking about his creative process. He quoted me, my line about silence being the loudest confession. I'd written that at 3 in the morning after listening to my father's old voicemails. Hearing it come from Eli's mouth felt like watching someone else wear your skin. I didn't tell anyone. Not my coworkers, not my ex who still checked in sometimes. I just kept editing other people's work by day, cutting breaths, cleaning hums, pretending not to hear the echo of my own stolen voice in every fade-out. But secrets rot. It was a Tuesday when my boss, Sarah, knocked on my cubicle and said, Hey, did you know Eli mentioned you in that new panel? Something about an old collaborator who gave him the idea for his new show? My chest tightened. What did he say exactly? She shrugged. Something like, he was a guy who never finished things. I figured he meant you, since you used to work together. That night, I opened my laptop and re-listened to the original file, the one before he touched it. My hands trembled on the keyboard. I noticed tiny differences now. How he'd cut out the line where I said, "This isn't ready." How he replaced the ending silence with his own branded jingle. It was theft, not just of content, of vulnerability. I spent the next 3 nights awake, pacing between the desk and the fridge, the hum of the compressor filling the silence like background guilt. I drafted emails to lawyers, deleted them. Drafted public posts, deleted those too. Every option felt either too dramatic or too small. Then something strange happened. A listener messaged me directly. She found my old username in one of the raw audio tags. Eli had been sloppy. She wrote, "Hey, I think you're the real voice behind that podcast. Your tone is different. It's yours. I just wanted you to know your words helped me get through a rough week." It broke something open in me. Not anger this time. Clarity. I didn't want to ruin him. I wanted to remind him who he really was when no one was watching. The next week, I kept working as if nothing happened. I even congratulated him on the success of his new project when he called me out of the blue. He sounded nervous, overly polite. "Man, I meant to talk about that," he said. "Things blew up faster than expected. We'll figure out how to credit you." "Don't worry about it, I said, calm as a metronome. "I'm just glad people are listening." He relaxed instantly, thinking he'd won. What he didn't know was that I'd already registered the show concept under my own name. I owned the copyright to 100 Quiet Things. And the next episode, my final unreleased draft, was about betrayal. I uploaded it anonymously to a mirrored feed using the same distribution service he did. I titled it 100 Quiet Things, Episode 4, The Sound of a Lie. The episode began with static, then my voice. There's something you should know about stories that sound too real. Sometimes they are. Sometimes the person telling them isn't the one who lived them. I didn't name him, but I didn't have to. Listeners noticed instantly. Comment sections lit up with speculation. Screenshots compared waveforms from his voice and mine. People realized the truth. Eli had been editing my words into his own brand. The fallout was slow, like a wire tightening around his reputation. He started deleting tweets. The forum moderators pulled down the original post. Sponsors paused partnerships. He texted me at midnight that Friday. "Did you do this?" I typed back, "You did." He called. I let it ring. I sat by the window with the city outside, pulsing neon through the blinds. And for the first time in weeks, I felt my breathing match the rhythm of something steady. But it wasn't over. The next Monday, my boss forwarded me an email from Eli's assistant, a cease and desist draft claiming defamation. Legalese about damage to professional image. I laughed out loud. He wanted to scare me into silence, the same silence he'd stolen. That's when I decided on the final cut. I started producing my own official launch, 100 Quiet Things, Season 1. Every detail mirrored his format, except one. The last line of the intro credits read, "Concept by a Coward." It was subtle enough that only those who knew the backstory would catch it, but sharp enough that Eli would feel the sting every time it played. When the premiere dropped, the comments flooded in again, only this time they weren't praising him. They were asking questions. Why did Eli's original episode sound like this? Who's the real voice? He went offline for a while after that. I didn't celebrate. I just sat at my desk with the mic still warm from recording, watching the play count climb. 100 listens, 200, then thousands. People didn't know the full story, but they heard the honesty in it, the cracks, the pauses, the hum of a man trying to take his voice back. Still, part of me knew he wouldn't let it end quietly. Eli wasn't built for silence. And sure enough, a week later, an email pinged into my inbox. Subject line, "Let's talk." I stared at it, coffee going cold beside me. I didn't open it right away. I just listened to the faint buzz of my equipment, to the city outside, to the sound of someone trying to come back from their own echo. The email sat unopened for hours. I watched the unread badge on my phone shift from red to gray as the screen dimmed and locked again. Outside my apartment, the streetlights flickered against the windows like they couldn't decide whether to stay or go. I told myself I'd wait until morning, but I didn't. Around 2 a.m., I tapped it open. From Eli at signalframe.studio. Subject, let's talk. Hey man, not here to fight. Can we just talk about what happened? Got out of hand fast, and I think we can fix it before it ruins both of us. Ruins both of us. I stared at that line until the letters blurred. I hadn't realized how much he still thought of this as a partnership. I didn't reply. Instead, I clicked on his new episode. He'd uploaded a response under his verified feed, owning your mistakes and moving forward. The title made me laugh out loud, a short, bitter sound that echoed off my kitchen tile. He didn't name me, but every word of it was a chess move. He spoke about creative misunderstandings, about shared ideas, and mutual inspiration. He played the victim with surgical precision, enough vulnerability to make people root for him, enough deflection to make them doubt me. And it worked. Within hours, his fans were defending him online. Everyone borrows ideas. He's just better at executing. This other guy sounds jealous. It's strange how quickly the truth starts to sound like noise when someone charismatic talks over it. That week, I barely slept. I'd play his clip on loop while editing commercials for a local insurance client. Every "I take full responsibility" turning into static in my head. By Thursday, I caught myself flinching every time my phone buzzed, expecting more messages, more subtle threats dressed as apologies. Then something unexpected happened. A DM from the Archive Podcast Network. They'd heard my anonymous uploads, the mirrored episodes that hinted at the whole story. The producer, a woman named Kendra, wrote, "Your voice feels honest. We've been looking for that. Would you be interested in developing this into a full series? Something about creative ethics, maybe?" I sat there rereading it like it was written in another language. For the first time in months, I wasn't being stolen from. I was being seen. I agreed to meet her. We met at a cafe downtown that smelled like burnt espresso and printer ink. Kendra was maybe late 30s, sharp eyes behind thick glasses, the kind of person who listens so hard it makes you edit yourself mid-sentence. She asked me to tell her everything from the start, so I did. About the late nights recording in my kitchen, about Eli, about the upload, about the text that said, "We'll talk credits later." I didn't dramatize it. I didn't have to. The story had already written its own tension. When I finished, she nodded slowly. "You know," she said, "if we air this, it'll make waves, but you need to be ready for him to push back harder." "I'm already living inside his echo chamber," I said. "I might as well make my own noise." She smiled. "That's the tagline right there." The first recording session for Echo Thief took place the following week. I borrowed a better mic from the office studio after hours. The irony wasn't lost on me, that the thing Eli once used to steal my words would now amplify them. The first line I recorded was, "I used to think honesty was enough. Then I met a man who proved that silence can be edited too." Each word landed heavier than it sounded in my head. We built the series as half documentary, half confession. I told the story chronologically, mixing raw audio with new narration. Kendra handled legal review. She was smart enough to blur the names, smart enough to know the truth didn't need proper nouns to sting. But before we could release episode 1, Eli beat us to it. He posted a video on social media titled "Clearing the Air." It opened with a shaky camera angle, him sitting in front of a bookshelf full of awards, speaking in that trademark soft sincerity that once made him so popular. I never intended to hurt anyone, he said, but I can't control how people interpret art. Creativity isn't ownership, it's collaboration. Millions watched. Comments flooded in, half supportive, half suspicious. Someone even noticed the "concept by a coward" tag buried in my show's credits and started connecting dots. Within a day, hashtags with our names were trending. Mine attached to words like underdog and authentic. His attached to fraud. He emailed again. You need to stop. I'm losing sponsors. I'll give you full credit, royalties, whatever. Just drop this before it burns both of us. I typed back. It already burned me. I'm just showing the ashes. Then I hit send and turned off my phone. A week later, Echo Thief premiered. I didn't expect the impact it had. The first episode went viral, not because of scandal, but because it resonated. People started sharing their own stories of creative theft, ghostwriting, emotional exploitation. Kendra forwarded me a listener email that said, "Your voice sounds like someone finally saying what we all feel, that our silence has value too." But success has a way of making old ghosts louder. Eli showed up at my office. He looked different, less polished, eyes darker, clothes too formal for the humidity that day. He waited by the elevator, pretending to check his phone, but I knew that stance, the way he held himself like someone rehearsing humility. "Can we talk?" he said as soon as the doors opened. My coworkers glanced at me curiously. I motioned him toward the stairwell. He followed quietly. The echo of our steps in that concrete space felt heavier than any mic test I'd ever run. When we reached the landing, he turned. "You got what you wanted," he said. "You humiliated me. I just told the truth." "That's not what you did." His jaw tightened. "You turned it into entertainment." I almost laughed. "You mean like you did?" He stepped closer. For a second I saw something I hadn't before. Not arrogance, but fear. "You think you won because you got people to believe you," he said. "But this isn't over. You're not built for this industry. I am." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm built for honesty." He didn't have a comeback. Just a long exhale. Then he walked away, footsteps echoing down the stairwell like fading applause. That night I stayed late at the studio, replaying our conversation in my head while mixing ambient noise for the next episode. Every footstep he'd left behind replayed through my thoughts like a metronome marking the past. Around midnight, the studio lights flickered. My screen froze for a second, then refreshed itself. A new file appeared in the project folder. Voice message, MP3. I hadn't uploaded it. I clicked play. It was Eli's voice, barely above a whisper. "You think you understand what I took, but I took it because you wouldn't. You sit in your apartment and record ghosts, and I turn them into something alive. You call me a coward, but maybe I'm just the one who isn't afraid to be heard." Then silence. The timestamp read 10 minutes earlier. He'd been in the building. I checked the security feed the next morning. There he was, walking through the lobby, visitor pass in hand, pretending to belong. He'd slipped in while I was recording, left the file, and vanished. I didn't report it. I didn't tell Kendra. Instead, I did what I always did. I turned it into sound. I layered his whisper beneath a new track of white noise and breathing, fading it in like a ghost monologue. It became the cold spine of episode 3. When the episode aired, listeners called it haunting. They said the overlapping voices gave it a sense of moral ambiguity. Two people talking from opposite sides of the same wound. They didn't know it was real. After that, Eli disappeared from the public eye. His channels went quiet. His company page turned into a placeholder with one line, "Rebranding in progress." But I couldn't shake the feeling that he was still listening. Every time I hit record, I imagined him sitting somewhere in a dark room, headphones on, dissecting my breaths, waiting for a line he could twist. I started second-guessing everything. Was I becoming what I accused him of, using someone else's pain for content? Was I still fighting him or feeding him? Those questions kept me up long past the edits. Then, one evening, a package arrived. No return label, just my name scrawled on it in sharp marker. Inside was a flash drive and a single note. You forgot what silence sounds like. I plugged it in. There was one file. Draft retake.wave. It was my voice again, but older, or maybe edited to sound older. It began with breathing, then me, his version of me, saying, I leaked my own podcast because I wanted to be seen. And when someone finally saw me, I blamed him for it. It wasn't real, but it sounded real enough to ruin me. My stomach dropped. He'd spliced my own words together. Every clip, every tone matched perfectly. If he released it, it would destroy everything. I sat there frozen for what felt like an hour, listening to the counterfeit version of myself confessing to crimes I never committed. Then I hit record. If he wanted to weaponize silence, I'd make sure my voice filled every inch of it. The first time I heard my own fake voice say, I leaked my own podcast, it felt like standing outside my body watching someone else drag my reputation through the dirt. The audio was too clean, frequency balanced, EQ'd to perfection, breaths placed exactly where I would have taken them. Eli hadn't just copied me, he'd studied me. I closed my laptop and sat there in the half-dark, the soft hiss of my soundboard still active. Outside, a garbage truck groaned past, metal clattering in the distance like applause for a performance I hadn't signed up for. The longer I listened, the more it hit me. He wanted me to panic. He wanted me to react, to lash out publicly so he could drop this counterfeit version like proof of guilt. I wasn't going to give him that. I took a notebook from my desk, the same one I used to jot down script ideas, and wrote a single sentence across the top. Truth isn't loud, it's patient. Then I started planning. 2 weeks later, Kendra and I sat in a glass-walled office at the archive headquarters, surrounded by the low hum of production meetings and the smell of stale coffee. She looked at the flash drive like it was radioactive. You're telling me he made a deepfake voice file using your own material? Not deepfake, I said quietly. He didn't need AI. He has all my raw takes. Every sigh, every edit, he's been collecting me for years. Kendra exhaled, then leaned back. We can handle this, but we can't go public without verification. If we call him out and he denies it, people will assume it's a rivalry thing. I don't need them to believe me, Paul, I said. I just need them to hear me. She tilted her head. Meaning? I slid my phone across the table. On the screen was a waveform, the new episode I'd been working on in secret. Echo Thief, Episode 4, The Voice That Lied. Kendra pressed play. The intro wasn't my usual soft narration. It was stripped down, just ambient hum, the sound of my computer fan, and the click of a mouse. Then my real voice. There's a version of me out there that says things I never said. Maybe you've heard him. Maybe you believed him. But if you listen closely, you'll hear the difference between honesty and imitation. The truth has heartbeat noise. The lie doesn't. Kendra listened through the whole thing without interrupting. When it ended, she said, "It's risky. I know, but it's brilliant." The episode dropped on a Sunday morning. No teasers, no announcement, just a new upload that appeared in feeds like a whisper cutting through static. Within hours, listeners flooded the comments. They analyzed the background noise, the pitch, the emotion. Sound engineers stitched the fake and real waveforms side by side, proving one thing beyond doubt. Eli's confession was edited, fabricated, layered with my previous recordings. Even industry blogs picked it up. Echo Thief turns the tables on audio manipulation. Authenticity War Rocks podcasting scene. Eli stayed silent for 3 days. Then he released a statement. This situation has been blown out of proportion. We experimented with blending creative voices for educational purposes. Any overlap was unintentional. It was the weakest statement I'd ever read, and the audience knew it. By that night, one of his sponsors cut ties publicly. The rest followed quietly over the next week. His once daily uploads turned sporadic. Then nothing. But for me, the silence wasn't satisfying. It was heavy. The more the noise faded around Eli, the more I noticed what was left inside my own head. I started dreaming in loops, half memories of recording sessions, half hallucinations of Eli standing behind me, whispering lines I hadn't written yet. Every time I heard my own voice play back, I flinched. That's the thing about having your identity stolen in sound. You start doubting every echo. One night, I walked to the studio at 2 a.m, unable to sleep. The city felt emptied out, windows glowing faintly, rain gathering in gutters. I sat in front of the mic, turned on the red light, and just breathed. Not for content, not for a show. Just to prove to myself that the sound of living wasn't his to take. The recording lasted 7 minutes. Long stretches of silence broken only by my breathing and the distant buzz of a street lamp outside. When I played it back, I realized it wasn't silence at all. It was everything I'd been missing. That became the final episode. Echo Thief, Episode 5, The Sound of Nothing. I didn't narrate. I didn't title drop or explain. It was just me, the room, and the noise of existing. When we uploaded it, Kendra thought it was too abstract. People won't get it, she said. They don't have to, I told her. They just have to feel it. The feedback was unexpected. Listeners wrote essays about the importance of reclaiming silence. Some said it felt like therapy. Others said it made them cry because it reminded them of how rare it was to just listen without filling space. Even a few of Eli's old fans messaged me privately. One of them wrote, "He taught me to talk louder. You taught me to hear better." That one stuck. A month later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a folded note and a single USB stick. The note said, "You win." E. I stared at it for a long time before plugging in the drive. There was one file again, credits of final.waye. It was just music, soft piano, no voice, no words. At the end, faintly a whisper, "Concept by a coward." Then silence. For the first time, it didn't feel like an accusation. It felt like a surrender. I didn't reply. There was nothing to say. Instead, I left my apartment one early morning and walked to the river that runs behind the city's old industrial park. The air smelled like wet steel and moss. I carried my old recorder with me, the same one I used for the first draft Eli ever heard. I hit record. The world filled the mic. Birds, water, distant engines, wind through weeds. I didn't speak. When I got home, I uploaded it as 100 Quiet Things. Epilogue. No title card, no tagline, no intro. Just the world continuing to make noise and me choosing to listen. I logged out of every social account after that. Deleted drafts, cleared drives. The story had lived enough lifetimes through sound. And maybe that's the real confession. I didn't want revenge anymore. I just wanted quiet that belonged to me. If this story moved you, subscribe for more real-life confessions and emotional journeys like this one.